I just have one goal that powers me to make all of these videos and to write all of these books, and it's to make gardening as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. And in order to do that, you sometimes have to take away some of the foundations that have built up to realise that there might be some missing elements, or perhaps we're spending too much time focused on one thing when there is so much nuance and context. And this is an article that I wrote for Scribehound, which is a collection of 30 different gardeners, and we can just share anything we want about gardening. You can listen to it in the morning. There'll be a link down below. And they kindly allowed me to share this on my channel. And I just want you to stick with it and see what you think. And some of you might remember a previous video that I've done, which it will relate to it. And this is more about thinking that one thing is better than the other, when really, and this can be applied to everything. I'm just applying it to what I call the gardener's civil war. And that will come to light in a few moments. So the title of the article was "Go ahead and double dig, you have my support." If you know me, this headline will certainly surprise you. No, I have not sold myself out, and yes, I absolutely still prioritise soil health. However, I have also realised I got caught in the trap of being a little too judgmental towards some gardeners for having a different approach. And as a result, I have had quite a significant U-turn in my beliefs of what truly matters when it comes to gardening. This, of course, has landed me in trouble, having been banned from a few Facebook groups as a result of militant admins protecting their ideology, as if me merely questioning or suggesting a different path up the same mountain was a personal attack on them. I need to make it clear that I am not here to ruffle up feathers. I actually really don't like conflict. I find it very uncomfortable. However, I am also incredibly passionate, and as is everyone else. And if someone is not passionate but finds themselves in conflict, it is most likely because they're bored. I gratefully do not have time to get bored. Maybe occasionally I'd like that, but I'm glad. But I do have much time in the garden, sowing seeds and potting on, contemplating the big questions of life, like, have I got too many tomato plants again? Probably, but oh well, it doesn't really matter. And it's the "it doesn't really matter" which has become one of the most important elements of my gardening approach. Oh, did these seedlings die? Guess it doesn't really matter. I'm still here, the garden is still growing, and I can just sow some more. But online, everything seems to matter. Anything I do in the garden, someone will have a problem with it. One example is that I mulch my tomatoes with grass clippings every year, and I always get comments about how I might as well be throwing down a lawn mix. I've never had a grass issue from it. Another example is how I'm trying Korean natural farming techniques, and people call it cultural appropriation, even though it is fully acknowledged. I guess people confuse appropriation with appreciation, or they're just bored. To me, the whole idea of wrong versus right in the gardening world is quite saddening. And the one that upsets me the most is what I call the gardener's civil war. Dig versus no dig. I call it a civil war because the definition of a civil war is a war between citizens of the same country. The country in this case is the gardening community, and the two armies are spade versus rake. But this isn't a battle for human rights or resources, it's about our gardens. Oh, bear with me there, I ordered the pages wrong. Typical me, but it doesn't really matter. But this isn't a battle for human rights or resources, this is about our gardens, which to almost every single gardener is one of the most important and special places in their life, if not the most. All gardens are different, and there are so many different methods out there. We don't have to agree on everything, but at least when you understand, you can empathise rather than criticise. My goal is to try and open up these conversations, to bring in the nuance of gardening, to celebrate the diversity of methods and to appreciate that everyone is different and has their own goals and challenges. Because the danger of not having open conversations between schools of thought is that we create echo chambers, cultivating nothing but confirmation bias, exactly what Facebook groups excel at. Oh, don't like our policy? You're banned. At a click of a button, gone. It's useful for trolls, but other than that, you get a monoculture of thought, focusing ever more on what makes you different rather than the similarities. And when you're so focused on why your method is best and all the downsides of the others, I mean, don't you dare mention one benefit of a differing method, you completely miss the opportunity to find common ground. For years, I have championed minimal soil disturbance, promoting no-dig methods and regenerative gardening practices. So why am I suddenly endorsing something as disruptive as double digging? Well, it's more about the why rather than the how. Double digging is not the best option for soil health. It damages soil life, releases carbon, and poses erosion risk. But is digging the worst thing you can do? Absolutely not. The use of harmful chemicals poses far greater risk to the soil, gardener, and wildlife than a spade. Synthetic herbicides like Roundup have no place in a garden that exists to benefit nature, let alone a garden providing your family's nourishment. The presence of such substances fundamentally undermines the health of the ecosystem. However, double digging, despite its disruptive nature, doesn't introduce toxins and is merely a method of cultivation rather than contamination. Plus, soil heals itself quickly if there is enough organic matter. And if you really wanted to ruffle some feathers, if I was ever bored, I would make the argument that annuals are almost exclusively found in nature in disturbed ground. I've seen and spoken to many passionate beginners who become intimidated or even felt unwelcome, believing they're failing or bad if they don't follow a certain approved gardening approach. We really need to take the guilt out of gardening. Because here's the truth. Growing your own food is one of the most powerful things a person can do. Regardless of which growing method you use, the simple act of cultivating food at home profoundly benefits your health, the environment, and your relationship with nature. Even if you double dig your garden beds every year, you're still creating habitat, enjoying the mental benefits of being outdoors, and you nourish your family with food far better than a supermarket could ever provide. In my view, gardening should always be inclusive, welcoming, and supportive. The goal is clear: empower more people to grow their own food. A vegetable harvested from a double-dug bed is infinitely more valuable than one that is chemically fertilized and treated, wrapped in plastic, and shipped across the globe. Let's shift our gardening narrative away from rigid ideology and towards practical encouragement, or at the very least, a mutual understanding. I've read that on average, civil wars that ended with peace agreements lasted 8 times longer than those that were terminated through military victory. Whilst this is an extreme comparison, we can learn a very important lesson from it. So yes, go ahead and double dig. You absolutely have my support. Because what truly counts is the act of growing your own nourishment, becoming connected to nature, and making conscious positive choices in a world increasingly detached from real food. Ultimately, it's the seeds that we plant, not just how we plant them, that have the power to change our world. There are over 100 ways to grow a potato after all, and every single method will give you a delicious harvest. So just garden for the joy of it.